Jack and Willie wants to know. He says he knows my hamburger rules, but what's my insight on pizza? Look, I think that's very wide open. I'm from Oregon. This is nationalistic. You start getting further east, like we put pineapple on a pizza out here, and it's delicious. You try to put pineapple on a pizza in New York City, they will kick you out of the shop. You will get no pizza. Out here, we put all sorts of stuff. We have a pizza called a Supreme. They're gonna put sausage, and they're gonna put pepperoni, and they're gonna put Canadian bacon. You're gonna get peppers on there. You're gonna get white onion. Add tomato if you want, which I always do. I love a fresh tomato. I think there's few things better than a fresh tomato. A homegrown fresh tomato is about as good of a treat as you're gonna get. Take the time, slice it, put a little salt on there. You put a little pepper on there. I mean, it's just delicious. So I like to do that on pizza. I like to get fresh tomato. That's very hard for me to do in New York. They put the sauce on it. They don't, as the cheese goes over the top. We'll throw some fresh tomatoes. Why would I put fresh tomato? It's already got tomato. That's what the sauce is. Yeah, but that's cooked. It's completely different. That's pureed. It's completely different. I want the whole tomato. I want to bite into it. It's one of these things. But as much as I say that, the East Coast is so ungodly superior to us in the terms of pizza. And that's been argued. Many people think it's the water. The water on the East Coast does something with the dough. It could be, but their sauce is better too. Their toppings are not. They largely just do cheese. And you can get sausage, you could get mushrooms. There's stuff that you could do, but it's hard to find. You can't just find anything. And I do think pizza should be completely tasty. I had a great pizza the other day, which is the opposite of what you would think a pizza would be. To start with, it's got the pizza crust, but then it never used sauce. It used a ranch dressing. It put fried chicken, cut it up. Of course, cheese goes on there. Are you ready for this? Pickles. So it's pickles with fried chicken, ranch underneath, and then you put, and they even gave me a beaker because this was hot sauce, but it was so damn hot, you put it on like a drop at a time, and you only need about 4 drops for the whole pie. It was that hot, this habanero sauce. But at any rate, that's about as good of a pizza as I've had in a meaningful amount of time. It was a surprise. It's not what some of you would consider pizza, but maybe I'm a little bit more wide open. I'm being asked where I would rank Chimaev for GOAT status if he were to defeat Usman and Adesanya and have both titles. Number 1! Come on! Come on, you set it up. That was right. That was a slow ball right down the middle. He's completely undefeated now. He's got all the hype. Now you're telling me he's going to be a champ, and an undefeated champ, which has never been done before? And in the process of being champ, he's going to take out the greatest in the weight class, who some are saying is the greatest of all time? In Usman? You can't beat Usman, who's the current GOAT, and not become the GOAT. But this sport lets you. If we have a GOAT and somebody beats the GOAT, that guy doesn't become the GOAT. They just knock everybody down and they bring in some new face. I've never understood it. It's one of the reasons that the rankings are so incredibly corrupted. But the rankings were never meant to be accurate. They were meant as a talking point for guys like me. It's the fighters themselves that have ruined the ranking system. Will wants to know, will Jon Jones succeed at heavyweight the way that everybody's expecting him to? Yes. Yes. There's 3 fights that are going to be a problem for Jon Jones at heavyweight right now. There's 3 fights that we could discuss, and he needs all 3 of them. You will have plenty of people to think he's going to lose each one, even if he wins the first 2. Going to the third, you will have enough people that can create enough conversation, and your mind will wander to a place of speculation, which you must have in the fight business. The sport of fighting doesn't qualify for that, or require that, rather. The business survives on it. But Jon Jones versus Ngannou, Jon Jones versus Gane, Jon Jones versus Stipe. They're 3 very different fights. If Jon Jones gets through those 3 fights, he's back in the same place he was at 205, where he is the king. Everything's in the rear view. Jon has headlined a lot of cards that nobody watched. I don't know of a champion who's ever headlined more shows and sold less tickets than Jon. It's not his fault. He was so good and he was so much ahead of everybody that when we had those wonderful fights like Gus versus Jon, part 1, Gus versus Reyes, which nobody watched, but turned out to be one of the great fights of all time, right? It was one of those things. Thiago Santos comes to mind. Split decision and could have gone either way. Quite frankly, should have gone the other way. I had Santos 3 rounds to 2. The 2 that Jon won, he kicked his ass, and the 3 that Santos won, he squeaked by. So if you looked at that, you thought Jon won. That's not how the fight's to be scored. Conversation for another day. What I'm sharing with you, those were surprises. It was surprises how close and competitive those matches were. You get up to heavy, and it was a problem for Jon staying there and selling any tickets that didn't look like empty chairs. He's going to run into that same problem at heavyweight, but not for a while. He's got some work to do, and that division could form. It could change. All of a sudden, there's 4 guys, there's 5 guys, but for right now, there's 3 fights for Jon Jones at heavyweight. I have seen no evidence, let alone heard of it, private workouts from the training room where he has slowed down. I hear he looks great. I never thought he needed to gain the weight myself. I thought Jon was the superior athlete. As a guy who's gone 85, light heavyweight and heavyweight, I'm one of the few guys to actually go out and do it. And I will tell you, the bigger you get, the easier you get. The smaller you go, the harder you're going to go. It's the opposite of public opinion. So if he was the king of 205 pounds, I would expect him to be the king of heavyweight. Shakir is asking me, was there a time in training I broke down, hugged my head, contemplated hanging up the gloves before I went on and became a star? I'm not calling myself a star. I'm reading the question. By the way, before any of you are disgusted that I just said that, I'm reading Shakir's question. No, it wasn't in training, Shakir, but yes, I did have that happen. I went to Japan. I fought in an organization called Pancrase. I remember the match. I'd watched a bunch of videos the night before, and I got very inspired to take a guy down and just open everything up and get a TKO. I was not trained to do that. I had not practiced that in the room. Even with a heavy bag, you can throw a heavy bag down, get on top of it, and really just let things go, get that exhaustion. But you got to build up your lactic acid. You got to build up your endurance. I was too young. I didn't know any of those things. So I was completely inspired by these videos I saw the night before. I think it was Kevin Randleman taking people down, getting to a mountain, pounding them out. So I take the guy down, I pass, I go right to the mountain, I sit up, I bring everything down that I can. He just brings his hands over his face. So I'm not doing enough damage for the referee to step in, and I punched myself out. I was exhausted. Now, I'm exhausted and realize I'm in trouble. I'm at a different level of fatigue. I cannot protect myself. Chris Lieben's in my corner, and all I want him to do is stop the fight, but I can't say those words. And this other guy's not hurting me. I was just that tired. And when you get to that level of exhaustion, and that's only happened to me a couple of times in competition. Happened to me many times in the practice room, but in competition, it's a very vulnerable feeling. And you want to be anywhere else but there. When you cannot follow the golden rule and protect yourself at all times, I couldn't protect myself at any time. There was nobody home. I was done. And after that fight, I was never down about it. I never felt bad. I never anything because I knew it was over. I was at complete peace. Went in the hallway, sunk down, caught my breath with exhaustion, and realized I'm going to have to go find something else to do. It ended up changing, but that was my hang the head, contemplate moment. Sinevi wants to know, does Dustin Poirier have a chance against the top 5 welterweights? I really think that. And don't forget where Dustin came from, which is the American top team. The American top team for the last decade has been the king of 170. Whether that was Tyron Woodley, whether that was Robbie Lawler, whether that's Colby Covington, the best 170-pounders in the world are all teammates with Dustin Poirier. So Dustin is seeing them at a minimum. He's feeling them at a maximum, which is far more likely. And he has deduced and decided within his own mind that he can go and compete with them. I have not seen anything within Dustin's skills that doesn't tell me he's going to be better at 170. The hardest guy to face is the guy one weight class below you. 170 is the same thing as 155, by the way. I mean, you're talking about 15 pounds, you're talking about nothing, but you are talking about Dustin now being healthy. You're talking about him being hydrated. You're talking about him feeling good. You're talking about him using his energy in preparation to get better as opposed to beat the scale. I see those all as positives. Anki wants to know my opinion, who wins between Usman versus Adesanya. You want to know something? I don't like that. Can I tell you why I don't like it? Those guys are so proud, and those guys are doing so much for their country, for their home country. I saw a piece that was one of the most powerful pieces I've ever seen. When I watch a highlight piece for a fight, it doesn't matter if it's boxing or MMA. It's the same thing that you guys see, which is a training video. The guy's in the gym. He's punching the bag. He's hitting the mitts. Maybe you catch a little bit of sparring. He's over on the speed bag. He's jumping rope, but it's compelling. I will find myself watching these training videos, and I get amped up. It gives me an emotion. And I don't know that there's any other breakdown to any other sport that I get that. Then I hear some interviews. I hear how important this is to him, how important it is to his family. Boom, I'm hooked. Let me go buy the show. Same recipe that you guys follow, but I saw a different one on Usman specifically before he's getting ready to fight Colby. When they did the highlight on Usman, it did not involve breaking a sweat. It did not involve being in a gym at all. He got on a plane, he went to his home country, and it was powerful. To see the inspiration that was Kamaru Usman, to see what this is all about, what this is for, who he's doing it for, and what it means internally to him, it's one of the best fight promotion videos I have ever seen. ESPN made this. ESPN put this out. It was so well done. And when you tie that into those same people in that same part of the world, that is where Adesanya comes from, that he represents, that he inspires, that drive him to do more great, that I don't want to see him fight. I don't want to see him fight. I don't want to verbally work out that fight. I don't want to get in the XOL. You got the striker versus a grappler, and history says, I don't want to do it. I do not want to do it. I will tell you, grapplers, historically speaking, are more superior than strikers. I will tell you, there's never been a striker to deal with grapplers better than Adesanya. So you want me to do this? I'm taking the cowardly approach. I'm calling it a draw.